number. Yep, 27 days away from the NFL draft. I know our boy Ric Serritella is fired up for it. Let's bring on Ric Serritella right now here on Birds 365, joining the show. Rick, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
What's up, fellas? I'm sorry, my draft Bible email gets so full this time of year.
Yeah. I figured that.
Appreciate it. How we doing?
Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah.
NFL Draft Bible at Ric Serritella on the X platform. Make sure you follow him. Rick does a phenomenal job. One of my favorite draft people. Thrilled to have him back on the show. Love seeing it. All access football. I love the background. Look at it all. I love it all.
We're trying over here, Mac.
It looks good, Rick.
Looks good. Doing a tremendous job. So, I want to talk about the draft with you from a league standpoint, but we'll start with the Eagles. We're an Eagles show. Boy, I got to tell you, top 30 visits aren't the end all be all, but the Eagles' history is pretty significant that when they bring somebody in, there's a good chance they have some interest in them. And they keep bringing in offensive linemen, Rick. I'm like, it's already the five guys I know of, or six, I believe it's six. Josh Connerly, and I want to ask you about these guys specifically. The Oregon tackle. Then you have Marcus Embo from Purdue, Anthony Belton from North Carolina State, Jalen Travis. Those are more day two guys, potentials to me, and this is where I want to get your sort of levels. The William and Mary tackle interests me, Charles Grant, because he's so athletic, but you worry about level of competition, all that kind of stuff. And at Ohio State, the whole league was at Ohio State, obviously, rightfully so. And all of a sudden, it's Donovan Jackson. He's the most interesting to me. Where do you think his ceiling is? Could he make it to 30? Could somebody see that as value as 32, or do you got to trade back a little bit?
Who was that? Which guy?
Donovan Jackson from Ohio
Donovan
State.
Jackson. He's right on the fringe, I would say, because his evaluation, like you go back this film, obviously he had to slide over to left tackle when Josh Simmons went down, but his best position is going to be at guard. I think he gave himself a shot to get a chance at left tackle, but I think the arm length is going to be an issue. I think the lateral movement and the side kick is going to be more suited to play guard at the next level. But like typical Eagles kind of guy, you bring him in, you got a guard in the making. He can cross train, step outside to tackle if need be. So he has that versatility, and that, adds some value there at the end of the first round. You're looking for guys with versatility. I like Donovan Jackson. Obviously, the other kid, Josh Simmons, you're hearing now whispers about character concerns that came out recently, 140 NFL personnel at the Ohio State Pro Day. So they're sure to meet with him. You mentioned Charles Grant, man. This guy's nasty. I love the William and Mary product. He is just, he brings the nasty in the trenches, and he's 6'4" and 7/8", so he's just under 6'5". He's got a 35-inch arm length. So, you talk about guys with length. That's the one thing this offensive tackle class is lacking, arm length. Specifically, a guy that you mentioned, Armand Membu and Will Campbell. These guys get lumped together.
Campbell's got short arms. Yeah,
well, Campbell's got the alligator arms with the 77-inch wingspan, which is really small.
Right.
But Membo, I think both of these guys are great NFL guards. Now they'll probably get a shot at tackle. Membo, to me, is more finesse. I like my guys to have an edge. I like my guys to play through the whistle. Membo's not that. He's a 330-pound tackle that runs a 4.9 140. He's a finesse tackle. Will Campbell is a little bit nastier. And Will Campbell, I think Campbell has a chance to survive at tackle more than Membo, even though he has shorter arms. Because, again, the kick slide, when you're out on the island, so to speak, as an offensive tackle and you're going one-on-one with those edge rushers, Will Campbell wins with his feet all day long. I think he's got the best footwork of any offensive tackle in this draft class. But to me, Campbell, Membo, they're guards. Simmons got character concerns. Anthony Belton, who we didn't talk about.
He's the guy the Eagles are bringing in too. Yeah, he's
I'll tell you what,
some Kai Becton. I'm
the best looking left tackle at the Senior Bowl was Anthony Belton. I love this kid. I mean, go pop on the film with Belton. I think he might sneak in to the end of the first round.
Ooh. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Quick tangent though, because you brought up some of the measurements. I've been, Penn State's famous now. I don't know if they have 39 yards out in Happy Valley, but these great timings. Now Texas. What do you guys, when you're there? Like John Ben Jackson, we were just talking about. He's got 33 and something inch arms. When he gets tested at the combine, all of a sudden the pro day is over 34. How do you guys differentiate some of these?
Yeah, and I see like people online that are confused by it, right? They're like, hey, how did his hands grow?
Yeah, exactly.
From Mobile to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case. What it is, it's called the human element error. Like there's room for error when there's a human element involved. And so there is no exact science for these measurements. Yeah, there's protocol that all of us scouts follow. But, for me to say that everybody goes by the handbook of how to measure players, it just doesn't happen. Like I'll be at a pro day and you can have scouts, most of them have you put your hand down and measure it flat on the ground. There's other scouts I see, they just do it up in the air. So, and you can obviously see, like, I can cheat. I can, get an extra inch as opposed to being flat on the ground. Same thing with, like, especially the wing, like, you measure the arm length, they're finding where your arm bends and they're measuring you. And when they do the wingspan, like the difference can be when an offensive lineman moves his arms like this a little bit more and gets away with cheating the drill. Now, Indianapolis, that's why teams appreciate the combine, because it's 350 guys being measured by the same person. Now you go to these schools and these pro days, it's like, hey, who's here today? Who's taking the measurements? Who's doing this drill? Who's doing vertical? And like you get different scouts assigned to it. And that's how these measurement mishaps happen.
Misalign, yeah. Makes sense.
What does that do for a team, Rick? Because that guy we were talking about, Will Campbell, he's got great tape. He seems like a great player. And then you hear measurements about the arms. And, he made a comment about the press conference at his presser. I saw John tweeted out of like, oh, all of a sudden I'm not a good player. If you're an NFL team, though, how do you gauge these things? How much merit do you put on one thing versus another?
Well, Will, I hate to tell you, that's what happens during the draft process. And you go back and really you look at the history of time, and I see like 77-inch wingspan. Okay, there's not another guy on my big board here that's like under 81 inches. So now, you go back and you say, how many guys in the NFL are playing with a 77-inch wingspan?
Right.
How many guys are playing, right? And how about Joe Thuney in the Super Bowl? He got exposed at tackle, right? Because he's a great guard, but then you got to, fill him in at tackle, and that length he gets taken advantage of, because it's just, you've got grown men with 35, 36-inch arms coming at you. And when you got a 4-inch disadvantage and you're asked to play on the offensive tackle outside, it's just a natural mismatch, right?
Yeah. It makes sense. But when you hit that, I always say, from my perspective, from doing it for a long time, not at your level when it comes to scouting, but just from watching guys develop over the years, you got to hit a certain level to play in the NFL, whether it's athleticism, whether it's those physical traits. And once you hit that level and you hit the baseline, then it's like, all right, can you play? And that's where the film comes in. And guys like, and I get why Will Campbell's upset, because he said nobody talked about him being a bad player till they realized he had short arms, and now all of a sudden they're questioning him as a player. So I can see when it gets frustrating. But one of the things I love talking to you about and talking to guys in the scouting field about is how many legit players in each particular draft. Where's the fall off? Where's the drop off from true blue chip to down to that second tier for you this year? Because I'm not in love with this group. I gotta be honest with you.
To me, I have really 2 or 3 blue chip guys. So Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are blue chip guys. I'm a big Tyler Warren fan. I actually would throw him into the blue chip. What
about Genty? Because running back and people devalue, but
I like people who compete, and it bothers me, like, you don't run a 40-yard dash, you do all these drills and dancing and pity patter, and it looks great at your pro day, but like dude, you averaged 7.3 yards per carry against the Mountain West. You didn't play one real defense until you faced Penn State, and all of a sudden your yards per carry dipped to 3.3. I mean, he was like a truck in mud against that Penn State defense, and that's what he's going to see on Sundays. So, like, you know, the fact that he comes out and doesn't run the 40-yard dash, so, like, what, you're worried about people critiquing your time speed? You're supposed to be this elite running back. I thought he could have sealed the deal as, like, a top 10 pick. Now I'm wondering, like, yo, what's that all about? Like, you did positional drills. Why didn't you run the 40 at the combine? Why didn't you run the 40 at the pro day? Now I start wondering, like, why didn't you run well against Penn State? Why were you only 10 carries for 44 yards against Washington? You know, it looks great against the Mountain West, but I wonder, like, Amarian Hampton at North Carolina, like, really good looking running back, did it against the P4 week in and week out. I like that young man. I like Cam Scattaboo. Like, I don't think there's a huge drop off from Genty to the next running back. And it bothers me. Like, it bothers me. I'm a little bit older school when it comes to that mentality. Like, Abdul Carter's not working out at the Penn State pro day, and Drew Rosenhaus is saying it's because of his shoulder. Well, hold up. Wait, I thought he had the foot. Now he's got a shoulder. And now you got the same thing as Tyree Wilson going on, where he doesn't need a screw right now immediately, but eventually he might. And that's a 2-month recovery minimum. Right. Yeah. So, like, you know, going back, though, like the tier 1 high impact players, I think after the top 10, you know, those guys from 11 to 50 are really, really close. I think Beauty.
Are there any quarterbacks in that top 10 of yours?
Yeah, I'm a big Shedeur Sanders believer. I think this guy is just an assassin. I've called him. He's so smart, cerebral. I think he gets knocked for his athleticism, but if you watch him bide time in the pocket and throw on the run, and which he's going to see a lot of in the NFL, because you only have 2.5, 3 seconds to throw the ball. If not, you got to get creative. And Shedeur Sanders thrives in that element. Cam Ward, I think, is more of a wow thrower, like EJ Manuel. You get these wow throws that show up on film, but just from a consistent body of work, I'm a Shedeur Sanders guy. I have a first-round grade on Cam Ward, just not as high. But, yeah, Shedeur Sanders is definitely in the mix there for me. Like, wide receiver, I don't think there's a true wide receiver one in this class. Emeka Egbuka is my favorite wide receiver for whatever that's worth. I think he's got the highest floor.
Yeah, it's a down year for receivers.
Well,
so I assume
Travis Hunter, though.
Yeah, Travis.
That blue chip. Like, is he playing both, Rick? I don't see that, but what do you say?
Well, I like him as a cornerback first. I think there's more value on a cornerback than there is a wide receiver. And so his instincts are elite. His ball skills are elite. I did the Patriots podcast. They're excited for Travis Hunter, not as a cornerback, though. They're excited to have him as a wide receiver.
Yeah. You know, Jeremiah is grading him as a wide receiver. That's my concern with Travis Hunter. Like, I don't think he can do both. Obviously, he's top. If he's not one, he's two in this draft from a just talent standpoint. But I think you got to pick a position. And that's the difficult part. Because I'm with you. You know, corner and Xander's pointed this out. Wide receiver is a rotational position. Even you roll guys through. You know, the top guys play a ton. Here, Devontae Smith, AJ play a ton, but it's a position where you're going to use 3-4 guys. Even on a team like Philadelphia that's run heavy, you still use 3-4 guys, sometimes 5 at a time. Corner, you got your 2 outside corners, your slot guy. If everything goes well, they're going to play. They're going to play 100% of the snaps. So just from a playing standpoint, I think corner probably adds more value. But if some team is out there and says, I want to play him at both, I want to play him at corner and receiver, do you think that's possible in the modern game?
Well, you know, I'm not going to put it by this kid. He just averaged 120 reps the last 2 seasons, right? So I'm not going to be the guy to tell him he can't do it. I know he's been adamant about it. You know, I think the biggest concern really wouldn't be from a physical standpoint, but more so as a mental capability. Like, the NFL playbook is 4 times thicker than a college playbook. Right. So now you've got to do that at both positions, right? Like, I don't think as a rookie, I don't know if that's feasible. Now, the other thing you could do on a physical side, you got to factor in your rookie year. is the most physically tolling because there is no offseason. Like you go from the end of the college season into combine training, into the combine or pro day, into offseason, into rookie mini camps, into that whole offseason of like, there is no downtime, right? Where the players, the Eagles had the Super Bowl, they've been off since February. These college guys, there's no stop, like right through into the next season. So that would be a concern for me. You know, he had that lacerated kidney 2 years ago because he took a violent hit. And so when you increase your snaps and your reps, that's bound to happen. It's part of the game.
Right.
I'd be a little bit hesitant to do it off of the gate, but I would create a sub package where maybe we've got 20 or 25 plays designed when Hunter is in the game. Right. And that's how I would go about it and let him expand and develop his role because Deion Sanders couldn't even do it. Right. Hines Ward, you know, he couldn't do it. So I'm not going to say Travis Hunter can't do it, but I think you got to be a little bit cautious. You got to have a real good game plan going into this thing.
Well, yeah, I think you could do it. There's the kid from the Patriots. Why am I? Who was it? Troy Brown.
Troy Brown did it. But he was kind of a situational.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. You could do it situationally.
Yeah.
You know, you're around Edmonton, the CFL for a while. Like, how would it even work logistically? I don't know if you know. How did it work in Colorado? Like, Kelsey was talking about the impact of Brandon Graham on the Eagles organization the other day. And he mentioned he was talking about how things are set up. You spend 90% of your time with your position group.
Meeting rooms, yeah.
Yeah. Like how is he meeting with both in an NFL environment? I don't know how it would work logistically at the NFL level.
Well, see, at Colorado, like he got by on natural athleticism. Like he's not the sharpest route runner, right? But like you get him the ball in space and he's so elusive and dynamic, he's going to make players miss. And I think there was like 4 games where he had an interception and scored a touchdown on offense. Like that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Right. On both sides of the ball. And that's the kind of capability he brings. And that's exciting.
Yeah. A great player. I just, I wonder where I would make that decision. And
I think about that second contract, right? It doesn't, if he's got to pick one, he's going to pick receiver because they're going to make $35 million. Now, corners are getting paid too pretty good.
Yeah, they're both getting paid.
Yeah, both getting paid pretty good. So I guess it's not big of a Rick, you said after 10 gets a little muddy. That means by 32, it's real muddy. If you're the Birds in this situation, what do you like? Where are you looking for the value? You moving up? They got a lot of picks. Are you moving back, trying to gain another mid-round pick? What do you like for the Birds to do sitting at 32?
I would like them to take the same approach last time they were picking 32 and trade out of that spot, right? They got Lamar Jackson with the Ravens, traded back, worked out for both sides.
Right.
To me, like, I think the quarterback mystery, I think Pittsburgh's at 21.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't see how they can't draft a quarterback.
Who's that quarterback for you at that point? Jackson Dart?
I mean, to me, I just mentioned Lamar Jackson. I see the same narrative painted on Jalen Milroe that was out there on Jackson. Yeah. Elite speed, scrambling ability, throws a beautiful. I mean, this guy, Jalen Milroe, has some beautiful deep bombs on tape, man. This guy throws a beautiful deep ball. But it's the short to intermediate game where he struggles and he's inconsistent. And that was the same thing with Lamar Jackson coming out. So to me, I like Jalen Milroe. Now, if you ask me who I think is going to be the third quarterback, it's smoke signal season, but it sounds like Jackson Dart is the guy. I don't get it. I don't see it. I mean, I was higher on anybody coming into the season on Jackson Dart. I just thought he failed to deliver in the big spot. Like, outside of Ohio State, like Ole Miss might have more players drafted than anybody. And for him not to be able to like even take that team to the college football playoffs, it reminded me of Will Levis, where Levis, I watched him in college, big moments, big spots, times to make statements against scouts. He just flopped. And I'm not saying Jackson Dart flopped. I'm not saying he can't be successful. I just don't see a franchise quarterback where I say, oh, I want to build my team around that guy. I don't see that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't see it either. I'm not in love with this quarterback class.
Now the one guy I would say Howie would target if he starts sliding down is James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee.
Yeah.
baby.
I was going to bring up the edge rushers. Yeah.
He's a top 10, top 12 pick. I mean, if you were to mold the prototypical edge rusher out of a machine, it would spit out a body frame that looks just like James Pierce. And so, I checked in with that character concerns, and I think that's more of a media fabrication than it is. I think it's more of a
what about his poor pro day? That's what I'm concerned about, because he's the film guy, and I want to compare him to Shamar Stewart, who's the physical freak. So Stewart is this physical freak and doesn't produce on the field.
Yeah.
All Pierce does is produce, and he showed up and he had a bad combine. How do you sort of weigh those two guys?
Well, I have Stewart as a defensive tackle to your point.
He's really?
But
he's a big guy. Yeah,
he's a big guy. I think he could take advantage of his quickness on the inside more, because I didn't see it at A&M. Like, he's got 4.5 sacks in his entire college career.
Yeah. That's not very productive.
So I don't see like this amazing pass rush repertoire. I waited for it all week down in Mobile. I saw everybody tweeting what a super supreme talent he was. I didn't see that. Pierce, I mean, I think Pierce ran like a 4.47. I mean, that guy has gotten crazy athleticism and bend. And you could state a case. Now, he had 19.5 career sacks, but he also had like 132 quarterback pressure. He had an insane amount of quarterback pressure. So, like, Pierce needs to learn how to finish, because he's been back there. His tackle, his pressure is way up there. His sack to pressure ratio, I'd like to see that improve, because he left a lot of sacks on the field. So, like, James Pierce is still, I think, has room for improvement. And he's got
I got to tell you, Rick, I can't see any way he falls to 32, even with some of the concerns.
Well, no, I think like if he starts falling into the 20s, I could see Howie maybe target and move up for that, right?
Yeah.
Like, if he gets into that 20 range, why not go and get that guy? I mean,
what do you think, Rick, he'd have to package? Like, if let's say Howie wants to go to 24, how hard would it be to get up from 32 with this draft kind of? If it falls off after 10 and there's a lot of gray area, how much you got to send to move up like that?
I think you're looking at like maybe a compensatory pick, a throw in a 3rd round pick from this year, or a 2nd round pick next year, with the 32nd to move up.
Right.
What do you think about the BC kid? Because they have him coming in for a top 30 visit. Mm-hmm. I don't like to butcher his name. Maybe
Taylor Elgersma. Yeah. Had him on my show.
No, Donovan. I'm talking about Donovan. Donovan as
the Boston College. I'm thinking British Columbia as a
recruit. Oh God, I got you. You're in your Edmonton, man.
Yeah.
No, as a Ruku, the Eagles are bringing him in for a top 30 visit. I think there's a chance he might be there at 32.
Yeah,
is that realistic?
Yeah, I think he's one of those. He's a 1st round guy for me. I think he could be on the board because it's so deep. This pass rusher class is deep and talented. I mean, I love this. Like, look at these guys who are going to come off the board before the Boston College kid. You're talking about Abdul Carter, Michael Williams out of Georgia, James Pierce, maybe Mike Green from Marshall. There's some off-field sexual misconduct, but then it's the Boston College kid, and I got the UCLA kid, Oladejo. I think is going to be one of the biggest steals of the draft. I saw this kid. He was a middle linebacker. UCLA start moonlighting him at edge rusher this year. Had 9.5 sacks. My eyes kept gravitating towards his presence. He was a dominating, imposing presence down there in Mobile. Like, he looked like a man amongst boys. And he's so raw. He's not developed at all. And he's just manhandling dudes. I think the kid from UCLA, Wafemi Oladejo, he might be a 1st round guy. And I'll tell you another guy that doesn't get talked about a lot that could be there for the Eagles and can play all 5 offensive line positions. He's a top 20, 25 talent for me. Gray Zabel from North Dakota State.
Oh, yeah.
This guy, I mean, you're talking about one of the cleanest prospects in the draft. He's a technician, great mirror ability, can even line up in center if you need him to. Like, he can play, he can step in and compete at any offensive line position, that Gray Zabel. I love that young
That
guy.
sounds like a Jeff Stoutland guy right there.
Oh, yeah.
I love the clean prospect. You know who's the cleanest prospect I've ever seen, Rick? And part of it was the same reason, because he could play anywhere. Zach Martin. And look at what Zach Martin did.
Yep.
He's going to go to the Hall of Fame. But people forget I think he played left tackle at Notre Dame. He could have played left tackle. He could have played all 4 positions. And his brother was a center, I think. But yeah, when you get those guys who they're going to be good, no matter where you put them, those are valuable pieces. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But I think Zabel's a guy, somebody's going to take a shot on him before 32. The Eagles are in that position where it's, as you mentioned, the Lamar Jackson year. I'd probably like to move back, but it takes 2 to tango. You might have to target one player, move up a little bit, but I think that would be very targeted type situation. And the player the Eagles got, Rick, the reason I say that, they traded back. Baltimore went up to get Lamar Jackson. Then the Eagles traded back up to get Dallas Goedert, a tight end. And they need a tight end now. They might be moving on from the Dallas Goedert business. And this is a good tight end draft.
Yes.
They're not going to get Tyler Warren. They're not going to get the kid from Michigan. But so 2nd round tight ends for you. Who's in that group?
Whew, there is some real value here. Let me tell you, Mason Taylor out of LSU, and wide receivers included. I don't know if I ever watched anybody run the gauntlet drill in the combine better or more efficiently than Mason Taylor. This guy just ran full speed. He didn't deviate from the line, natural hands catcher. And he was so underutilized at LSU. They just he was an underneath security blanket for the quarterback there. This guy, you're talking about untapped potential at 6'5", 251 pounds. He can run like the wind. And then also Miami had their pro day this week. Elijah Arroyo.
Yeah.
This is a name to keep an eye on because he's again speedy, quick, struggled with injuries early on in his career. Kind of a one-year wonder, came out of nowhere. I mean, the guy had 6 career catches coming into this year. He just exploded with Cam Ward this year. But you talk about high-end speed, day 2 pick, Elijah Arroyo, and then Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame. Maybe not as much upside, maybe a little bit more of a plateaued prospect, but I know I'm getting a high-quality player who can block, who can catch. He's not going to hurt you in the pass game. He's going to be a valuable inline blocker. Mitchell Evans would be a great fit for the Eagles. Luke Lachey in day 3 out of Iowa. He had an injury now 2 years ago, but before that, he was considered a first-round pick. He's got all the size, skills, and traits that you look for out of Iowa. And one last guy I'm going to give you, I'll give you 2. Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon. I mean, I'm really impressed with this kid's ability. Again, a dual, multi-dimensional tight end. And then Harold Fannin, who I thought was the most disappointing guy in Indianapolis. Yeah. I was really expecting big things from Harold Fannin, but he ran like a 4.7 340 at 6'3", 240 pounds, kind of that H-back mold. But what do you have? 113 catches this year, like insane.
And the Eagles hired his head coach. Scott Lepler's the quarterback.
Interesting.
Coach. Yeah. Well, so there you have it. I do have concerns about his size. The Eagles need more of I think, an inline sort of old school, which those guys are rare, but they want to sort of replicate what they've had with Dallas Goedert, which is not going to be easy. And Fannin is so slight. To me, he looks like a king-size receiver more than an actual tight end.
He's more in that Trey Burks mode, I think. So
yeah. Here's the $1 million question though on tight ends. The Philadelphia Eagles just ran for 2,500 yards on their way to a Super Bowl. Can any of these tight ends block anybody? And if they weren't asked to do it in college, do you project any of them to be able to maybe take on that skill set at the next level?
Yeah. Well, Jackson Hawes out of Georgia Tech, I mean, he's just an over-glorified fullback. He's almost an extra offensive tackle, 6'4", 253 pounds. To me, the Georgia Tech kid is the best blocker in the draft. Gunnar Helm out of Texas.
I like Gunnar Helm.
Yeah, he's not a bad blocker. Now, he had a nasty, nasty ankle bruise on his first 40-yard dash attempt, so he has a poor, 4.85 40, but I think scouts are going to give him a pass on that because he actually completed the entire workout. If you saw the picture of his ankle, Kudos.
Yeah, I
to
did.
that young
Yeah, I did.
I
See
mean,
that.
he's a tough mo. You know, and then you talk about like Zander, can you develop that? Yes, I think half of the battle is the willingness and the effort and the want to. Like Tyler Warren has that, like similar to Gronk, where Gronk was a very willing blocker. His technique wasn't always there, but you saw by the end of his career, Gronk was a phenomenal blocker.
Great
Yeah.
blocker. And then John brought up a good point the other day
That,
about
nobody knew Dallas could block. The
right,
Eagles
because he
didn't
wasn't
know
asked
Dallas
to do it
could
in
block.
college, but he got here and he's good at it, you know. So I was looking for maybe a guy that's physical or, like you said, has that want to go and do it.
Yeah, and Mitchell Evans, I think, falls into that category. There's another guy from Nebraska. He's just built like a refrigerator. Thomas Fedone. He'd be more of a day 3 pick, but he's a big body, squared guy. He's got sneaky athleticism now. Like
I'll tell
you
you
would
what,
never expect this guy to be so agile. You turn on the Nebraska film, and there's this refrigerator out there making these grabs over the middle of the field. Thomas Fedone.
You mentioned the Iowa kid. I was like, as a scout, you can't scout the helmet, but you might make an exception with Iowa tight ends.
Oh, yeah.
They just seem to develop them out there. It's pretty impressive. But from the standpoint, I'll give you, and make sure you follow again, Rick, on the X platform. It's at Ric Serritella, RIC. Make sure you subscribe to allaccessfootball.com. Get the NFL Draft Bible. Are we printing that thing? I'll put my request
no hard
right
copy
now.
this year, guys. We're just going to do
all right.
PDF.
I'm requesting my PDF on the air.
You will be getting a PDF, no doubt about it.
Love the NFL Draft Bible. Rick does a tremendous job, so you can get that at allaccessfootball.com. One guy the Eagles brought in that is bringing in, that was a little bit of a surprise to me, was Maxwell Hairston, who's the Kentucky cornerback. Mm-hmm. Good zone guy, but they drafted Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. You don't think they're doubling down, but the Eagles have Vic Fangio, and Vic Fangio loves off-man coverage, does all these unique, complicated zone coverages. Him specifically, and then the cornerback group, when you talk about guys who are prepared to play off coverage, who are your top guys in the draft?
Yeah, I think Hairston's an interesting guy because I think he can do both. Like, he could play quarters coverage, he could play man coverage. I thought he showed a little bit of that versatility at the Senior Bowl. Now, the issue with Hairston, he came in light at 183 pounds. That's my only knock on him, but 4.28 speed, 1.5, 10-yard split, the change of direction, the speed, that man's going to be able to run with anybody, right? I have Jahdae Barron as another guy out of Texas who can do it all.
Yeah,
I love him. What he brings to the table, I think, people are maybe underrating him a little bit because he's 5'10", but he won the Thorpe Award for a reason, because he's an elite cover man. So he would be somebody in the mix there. The Florida State kid, Azariah Thomas, I think is another guy I would put in that category. He was down there in Mobile and really elevated his draft stock. I don't know if he sneaks in to round 1, but he might be hanging out there in round 2. And then I'll give you a guy, mid-round pick. I have a second or third round grade on him, but Noel Williams out of California. He went to the East-West Shrine Bowl, so he's a little bit more under the radar. But, man, he's got that just ability to jump the route, read the quarterback eyes. I think he led the FBS with 8 interceptions this past year, the Noel Williams kid. And, if you're looking for a developmental guy, how about Za Frazier out of UTSA, 6'3", 4.36. He's been compared to Tariq Woolen, his former teammate, and for very good reason. So if you're looking for one of those bigger guys, Za Frazier from UTSA.
Yeah. They love lengthy guys. What do you think of Morrison? Because I loved his play at Notre Dame, but he had the hip injury. I think he could get some value there. If obviously he's going to get knocked down a little bit because of the injury.
Yeah.
What do you think about him as a prospect?
It's been eerily quiet on the injury front in terms of what his medical check was in Indianapolis. Like, I don't know what that looks like, because I think at the end of the day, that's what's ultimately going to determine where he goes and how comfortable teams are reviewing that, because we don't have any measurables on file. He's 6 foot 193. He didn't play a lot this year. Like, I wasn't in love with his 2024 film. So, but there's not a body of work to go off of. You got to go back to last year. I thought his film was a lot more fluid and, better coverage. So, like, day two, if he's there, you're getting a guy that has day one talent, right? But that's the thing with injuries, a little bit more risk reward. I think that's why he slides into that day two conversation.
Yeah, Rick, last one for me, man. Somebody that's been talked about a lot in Philly, and that's Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. You like the player. What do you see there with Walter Nolan? And do you think he would fit well here in Philly?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this guy's probably the quickest defensive tackle, Mason Graham included. There's a lot of people in the scouting community who have Nolan ahead of Mason Graham. Smaller now. He came in at 297 pounds. He has the frame to grow and develop, but in terms of speed, quickness, the ability to rush the passer from the interior, like, the only thing that's going to come into question is the maturity or immaturity, character concerns that have been kind of swirling around him. But if you're comfortable and can get over that hump, like, this is a guy without the off-field character concerns is a top 10 talent. Where he slides, like that Nolan might be a guy just like James Pierce. If he starts sliding, Howie Roseman could maybe put a package together for someone like that.
Yeah, that whole Ole Miss D line is good, Rick. Jared Ivey is another good guy.
That's what I'm telling you. Like, Ole Miss is so talented, and Jackson Dart couldn't deliver.
Yeah, they were. By the way, you think Ohio State's beating Georgia's record? 15, I believe, in 2022. Man. Ohio State might get there, man.
That's a lot,
That is a lot. That is a lot.
I'm going to take the under, but it's going to be close. I could see 13 or 14.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Ric Serritella, we love you, brother. We appreciate you joining in. Make sure you guys go and follow him at Ric Serritella and the NFL Draft Bible. By the way, great work you're doing with Brian Baldinger now. Tell the people where they can go and consume some of that content, man. That's
thank you. Every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, we have the NFL Draftcast show live streamed on Twitter, X, and YouTube. So make sure you go find it, like it, share it, subscribe it, and appreciate all the love and support.
Drop that YouTube channel, brother. What's the YouTube channel?
All Access Football.
Okay.
All Access Football. You can find us over there. I see all the chat room people. I love all you guys. I hope you come check us out. And, man, you said 26 days. You're making me nervous.
Yeah, man. Good stuff. Man. Rick, thank you for joining in,
Thanks,
brother. Appreciate it, man.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah. Great stuff there from Ric Serritella. Always great to have our boy Ric Serritella on the show. One of the best in the business, John, in the NFL draft. Great stuff there, man. Some good takeaways on some of these key players. John, getting exciting, the draft. It's getting exciting for the Birds. I think the one thing that's putting a little bit of a damper on it for Eagles fans is you're sitting at 32, and most of us think Howie's trading back. So it's like night one, it's going to be the big spectacle, and the Eagles might not even make a pick. So that's all in the back of our mind. But boy, great breakdown by Rick there on some of the prospects.
Some of the guys that have visited that could be an option, and I think if you're playing the odds, it's more likely to go back. Rick mentioned, a lot of guys have mentioned he had it at 10, and then the drop off, and then 11 to 50. Makes sense if you get similar value. Makes sense to drop down, but you need two people to tango, and at 32. You need that quarterback if you want to take advantage, really maximize the situation like they did in 2018. Not that people can't pick an edge rusher, but, if there's an edge rusher there, the Eagles probably want him. So you can look at it that way. If you're playing the odds, it's more likely to go down or up, but there's certain guys that if they start to fall, and they're probably going to be on the defensive front, they may make the targeted trade up. They can go both ways.
What about your thoughts on Rick on Shedeur Sanders? How about that first guy we've had on that was high?
Yeah, I like guys. I I like guys who there's a lot of group think in this.
Yes, I agree 100%, John.
And
Agreed.
and it's really interesting with bands. It's like, they hear something and they hear Jeremiah saying, and it becomes gospel.
Right.
And I have a lot of respect for DJ. I mean, that's sort of what I do. There's scouts I respect, and those are the guys I listen to over the years because, they have a good history. Rick's one of them. And those are the guys I listen to. I've always liked Emery Hunt is this way as well from Football Game Plan.
Football Game Plan, right?
Like he doesn't care what other people think. And look, I don't like Shedeur Sanders, but hey, I like it when Rick, like, you won't find anybody basically that'll say Shedeur Sanders is above Cam Ward. And I don't think he is, but Rick said it and he believes it. And I like that.
And he gave you why he believed it. I think it's a great point by you, John. Groupthink is no good, man. And having somebody that's, but here's the other thing I like about that, John. Groupthink, I think, exists outside of all of the NFL. Like the NFL teams, for example, the Eagles are thinking like Rick, right? They make their own evaluations on players. They have their board. They evaluate players. And, maybe they see it like Rick does or like any of the other people. But I do like having that a different perspective. I thought Rick was awesome today, man. He's always awesome, but always got high energy, Johnny Mac, Ric Serritella.
Yeah, I mean, Rick's great, and he's on the ground floor. He's been a scout. He does scouting, so he knows how this stuff works. Good. I like, got him on the record about some of these measurements and how they do it differently, and it's not an exact science. So I think people get caught up in that. And that's why the combine's more important because they're doing it the same way. And at least it's more realistic than the pro days. And some guys, like when they don't do stuff, like I don't think it's going to affect when you're as big a prospect as Abdul Carter. I don't think it's going to affect him. But there's very few people like that. And if you're one of those guys who's even a first round pick, a mid first round pick, and you're not working out, and there's some issues, it can really, really affect you. So I think there was some interesting discussion with that. But that's the way of the world. I mean, Abdul Carter knows where he's going, and why mess with it?
Yep, no doubt about it. Great stuff there from Ric Serritella. I want to thank and welcome everybody for being here today. A little over an hour into the show. We got about 55 minutes left to go here on a Football Friday. Another week, Johnny Mac. I feel like these weeks are going faster and faster and faster and faster. I don't know what's going on, man. Already Friday, but appreciate all you guys being here. For everybody listening on the podcast, I continue to say this because the podcast is growing like a weed right now. So and when I say podcast, I had someone say, wait, I thought I was listening to a podcast on YouTube. You are, but podcast, the other platforms are the Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and that's an audio-only version of the show, but it's growing a lot over there. So we appreciate all the podcast listeners who are listening. Don't forget to leave a review on the show. Give us those 5 stars if you like the show. We appreciate that. It helps us grow. So hit that like button if you're here on YouTube. We'll be right back on Birds 365. We got 50 minutes left to go, and we'll have a little bit of fun here in the last 50 minutes of the week. So appreciate you all. We'll be right back in 3 minutes.